Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Shrives, and I'm part of the Learning Services team here at Royal LePage Canada. And I'd like to start this webinar off by wishing you a warm welcome to this month's Sales Success webinar. We have a fantastic session prepared for you today. We're calling it Build Your Business in the Luxury Market, and we've invited the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing's founder and president, Laurie Moore-Moore, to share her expertise as to how one can position themselves as a luxury expert. This webinar is going to be about an hour. And so before I pass things over to Lori, I just want to talk a little bit more about the Sales Success webinar series and what we're trying to get accomplished here. I also want to then pass it on to Lori for her presentation. And to close things up, I want to talk about the carriage trade program and the resources available from Royal LePage when you are listing a luxury property. And finally, I want to tell you about some of the other training, both live and online, that we have available to support you and your business. So these sales success webinars are happening every month, and the objective behind them is to really enhance your sales development, offer presentations that are crafted by industry experts, and we also release all of the topics on a quarterly basis to make sure that we're staying on top of trends in the industry and providing relevant contact or content for you. If you haven't seen the offering for the second quarter of this year, we have today's session with Lori, as well as a session with Chris Leader in May and June. In May, Chris is going to be presenting on negotiating the offer. And in June, we're going to be talking about buyer strategies. So for all of the information regarding the sales success webinars and the other training that we do, please be sure to check out royallepage.ca/training. And really, the driving force behind all of these webinars is built into the promise that Royal LePage has to all of its agents. And really, we want to help you maximize your earning potential by providing you with the business tools, access to leads and referrals, and the training that you need at all stages of your career. We would like today's webinar to be as interactive as possible. So if you're viewing today's presentation as a Google Hangout or viewing it within the Google Plus framework, please feel free to ask a question. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see a little icon. It looks like a grid there. And when you click on that, a little menu will open up and you can select the Q&A app. And then once the question and answer section opens up, there'll be a panel on the right-hand side of your screen where you can type in questions. And towards the end of the webinar, we'll be taking your questions. If you have any questions later on, feel free to get in touch with us here. It's Learning Services, and that's services with an S, at royallepage.ca. So at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Laurie Moore-Moore. She's the founder of the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing and has been in the residential real estate business for 30 years. She has sold luxury real estate, managed a large real estate office, and has run two divisions of the third largest real estate company in the US. Laurie has trained over 9,000 luxury home agents and is an advisory board member of a Fortune 1000 company. The Institute for Luxury Home Marketing is a valuable partner to Royal LePage. And at this point, I am pleased to pass the presentation over to Laurie Moore-Moore.
Thank you so much, John. I'm absolutely delighted to be joining you today. So, what I'd like to do is start with a small but important fact, which you may already know. Last spring, the Financial Post reported that there is a growing number of Canadian real estate licensees. In fact, across Canada, there is one real estate professional for every 245 Canadians over the age of 19. Now, the good news is that you are not assigned your 245 potential prospects. Instead, you may capture and serve as many prospects as you can. So the question becomes, How do you, in the face of growing competition, differentiate yourself as unique and better able to meet the needs of your upper tier buyers and sellers and build your business in the luxury market? Well, I believe we can answer that very important question in two words: competence and confidence. It seems to me that competence comes from all of those skills and tools and the toolbox that you have available to you. And so, in the little bit of time that we have today, we're going to talk about all those competencies that you need to maximize your success. And confidence? Well, it springs from knowing that you're competent. So, what is the definition of luxury? As we begin, that's probably a pretty good question to address. At the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing, we recognize that it depends on the marketplace, that luxury is actually specific to an individual market. So, the definition that we typically use is the top 10% of an area's home sales in the past 12 months. Now, by top 10%, I mean the top 10% based on sales price. But since marketplaces differ greatly, there are some small markets out there where that top 10% is not very high. So we have a floor, if you will, a minimum. We say luxury is never less than $500,000. Now, obviously, if you're from a large market like Toronto or Calgary or Edmonton or Vancouver or Montreal, that number looks very low to you. But if you're from a smaller place, let's say Parksville in British Columbia, that 500,000 is probably a fair entry point for the top of your market. Well, what drives the luxury market? Well, it's as simple as the number of wealthy households. As households go up, demand for luxury homes increases. So, the good news about what's been going on in Canada is the number of wealthy from millionaires to billionaires is higher than ever before. And that's good news. Now, just to give you a little bit of a perspective, let's look at a specific number. All right? The number of Canadian millionaires exceeds 300,000 and it continues to grow. Well, these are really what we call high net worth individuals. That's the number that was used in this particular report. And high net worth individuals, and you'll see that abbreviated as HNWI, can be defined as those who have $1 million or more in investable assets. And investable assets simply means money invested or available for investment, but it doesn't include the primary residence, consumables like a fine wine collection, or collectibles like jewelry, fine art, fabulous automobiles. So when we say 300,000 plus Canadian millionaires, what we're really talking about here is people who are substantially wealthier than the traditional millionaire of assets minus liabilities equals net worth. So that's good news for Canadian real estate professionals who want to target the high end market. And the prediction is there's more growth ahead. Well, let's get right down to the nitty gritty here and let's look at some tips and tools that you can utilize starting this afternoon to help you maximize your success in the high end marketplace. Now, I want to go back to something John said just a moment ago because I think it's really important, and he's going to elaborate on it towards the end of this webinar. And that is how important it is in building your success to stand on the shoulders of your brand. Royal LePage is a powerful, powerful brand, and so is the carriage trade program. And so that visibility and desirability out in the marketplace is important. And there's a whole new array of carriage trade tools. So, first of all, you want to increase your luxury business, make sure you know what's available to you and utilize it. Now, I think it's also very useful to know how do luxury buyers and sellers choose their real estate professionals. So here's what research says. First of all, they want to know that you know real estate. You know the process. You have buying and selling process expertise. You can make the process seamless for them, in other words. They want to know you know your luxury inventory. If they're sellers, they recognize that your knowledge of inventory is going to help you establish the best marketing price. And if they're buyers, your knowledge of inventory is going to result in your ability to help them negotiate the best deal. They also are concerned about your ability to use the internet and communicate via email. They want to know you're tech savvy. They also hope, if they're sellers, that you have the ability to fully qualify prospects, often before their homes are allowed to be shown to them. And we'll talk in a minute about how can you do that in a way that's very comfortable and appropriate and effective. They want to know that you'll be discreet. They really would prefer that you not be talking about their transaction at your next child's soccer or hockey game. And in addition to that, if they've had good experience with you in the past, well, they're likely to give you a shot at their business again. However, don't rest on your laurels because they're also concerned about the best listing presentation and the best written marketing plan. They trust that you understand mortgage financing and that you can make the introductions necessary to a quality mortgage lender. And if you were referred by friend or family member to them, they view that as essentially a confirmation that you have the necessary competencies because they don't believe friend or family member would refer someone that they didn't perceive as competent. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, please note nearly half of the people surveyed said it was important to have a luxury designation because that was an indication of competency. So think certified luxury home marketing specialist as something you might choose to target. Well, where do you start? Or if you want to take your business to the next level, is there something that you need to be sure you're doing so that you can really maximize your success? I believe the single most important thing that you can do is to position yourself as an expert. And here's how I would suggest that you can do that. First of all, think about creating a market update report. Now, hold that thought for a moment because we're going to come back after some other key points and talk about what is a market update report. So, what is it you can do to begin to position yourself as an expert? Well, the first thing I think you need to do is target effectively. And so, if you haven't already done this, or if you're thinking might want to move up to the next level within the high end market, you need to ask yourself what's the price range that you're going to target? Are you going to focus in on properties priced from a million to 5 million? Is that going to be your bread and butter market? Are you going to focus on properties priced from 750,000, let's say, to a million and a half? Decide what's the price range that you're going to focus your efforts on. The second thing is to then take that price range that you've already identified and break it into what I might call logical price bands. These are really small price ranges. For example, let's say you're going to start at 750,000. You might break then that entire target price range that you're zeroing in on as quote your market starting at 750,000 to just under 800,000, 800 to just under 850, 850 to just under 9, 9 to just under 950, 950 to just under a million. Now, at the $1 million and above level, you're probably going to want to chunk it into larger chunks. You might do a million to just under a million and a quarter, a million and a quarter to just under a million and a half, and so on. And at some point, you might say, and all over 10 million, or whatever the magic number might be in your particular market. So you've zeroed in on target price range, you've broken that into smaller price bands, and then you need to determine a time frame that you're going to consider as you begin to track your market effectively. All right. So now we're going to start talking about once you know your geographic area that you're going to focus on, you've broken it into price bands. Then, let's say, for example, you're going to start and say, on a quarterly basis, I'm going to start tracking what's going on in my targeted geographic area by these narrow price bands. So, then you're going to gather the information for each price range or price band on a quarterly basis. And once you have that information, you'll turn it into charts and graphs. All right. Now, for those of you that are suddenly finding your eyes glazing over and your mind is shouting at you, oh no, I don't do Excel. I'm not real good when it comes to statistics. Please don't tell me I need to do this. I have some good news for you. All right. Most of you, I hope, will be taking our luxury home marketing course. And when you do that, you automatically become a member of the Institute. And we have some free software that lives on our website. And so all you'll have to do is go in. There's a little worksheet. You fill it in, you establish your price bands, you pull various bits of information from your MLS, you enter it in the worksheet, you hit the button, and all the calculations, creates the charts and graphs, and actually customizes them with your name. So we'll make it as easy for you if you're a member of ours as we possibly can. But let me show you the kind of thing that I'm talking about. All right, so for example, let's say that this is information for the most recent quarter. And what I have done is I have taken the number of sold or closed transactions by price band, as you can see here on the screen, and I have simply turned it into a simple chart for an imaginary market. All right. So this is for illustrative purposes. Now, notice, however, I haven't called this completed transactions. I haven't called it sold. Instead, I've called it the number of real buyers. Now, this is terminology that I'm going to suggest that you begin to use, and here's why. Typically, the seller, when you're talking about solds or completed transactions, really doesn't always understand our real estate terminology. It kind of goes in one ear and out the other. It isn't particularly compelling. And so, if instead you simply change your terminology from solds or completed transactions to real buyers, you'll find it very effective. For example, in explaining this chart, uh, let's start with the price band of just under 2 million. That 1 3/4 million to just under 2 million. All right. You might say to a seller, in the price band where you're considering listing your home at just under $2 million. In the last 90 days, there have only been 6 real buyers. And by the way, Mr. and Ms. Seller, I'm defining a real buyer as someone who not only contracted to buy the house, they showed up at completion and walked away owning it. Oh my goodness, their eyes will pop open and they will think to themselves, only 6 in the last 90 days? My goodness, that's only 2 per month. But you go on to say, however, in the price band where I'm recommending that we market your home at just under 1.7 $1.49 million. There have been 12 real buyers, or twice as many, 4 per month. Doesn't it make sense to list your property where there are twice as many real buyers? Now, that's a dose of reality for a seller. However, if you don't use that term and define it, oh, by the way, Mr. and Ms. Seller, real buyers are those who not only contract to buy the house, they show up at completion and walk away owning it. Your arguments won't be nearly as powerful. So, a little shift in terminology can make a big difference. And visually being able to see it in a chart or a graph is very, very powerful. So, there are a variety of charts and graphs that you should do based on individual price bands to share with your buyers and sellers. Wouldn't it be good to have a days on market chart by price band as well? I think you're getting the idea. All right, we don't have time today to go into more of the charts and graphs that you could use, but just number of real buyers, I think, establishes the idea. Now, here's where your market update report comes in. If you take the time to gather the statistics and you do the charts and graphs on a quarterly basis, then it's pretty darn powerful to pop them in to a simple little report. We call these at the Institute market update reports. And here's one created by Sally Sales Pro. Now you can see she's done number of real buyers, and she's actually done it across 8 different price bands. And she's done average days on market, again, for 8 different price bands. And you can see there's a substantial difference. In fact, in one price band, it looks as if there were absolutely no sales during a particular quarter. That's a real eye opener for sellers. Now, she's also taken the time to do just a little bit of descriptive information about what's going on in her market, and she has her contact info. Now, if we flip this over, we'd find some more charts and graphs, and maybe we'd see a featured property, something that Sally Sales Pro has listed that she wants to include when she sends out her market update report to past clients and customers, to the geographic area she farms, to her center of influence, and probably to other professionals like real estate attorneys and uh, accountants and so on, because those are the folks with whom she networks who might be in a position to send her referral business. Your market update report establishes you instantly as someone who has their fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the market. Now, I know some of you are thinking, ah, Laurie, I can tell you my market average is 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Well, I'll tell you, your market averages and a couple of bucks will get you a cup of coffee at Tim Horton. And I would propose to you that that's about all your averages are good for. Because once you start doing the numbers by price band, what you're going to find is there are significant differences with regard to what's happening in the market within those price bands. And if you make assumptions based on market averages, you may not be in a position to make the best real estate decisions in your own business practices, nor will you be the best agent for advising luxury home buyers and sellers. So, single most important thing you can do, break the market you serve into narrow price bands, follow the statistics, create a market update report. That will make you a market expert. Now, we talked a moment ago about terminology, so let me give you one more little, what I consider to be a powerful terminology idea. Listing presentation. Oh my goodness, what were we thinking? Why didn't we just go ahead and shoot ourselves in the foot? Think about it. All those consumers out there generally have this impression, unfortunately. A realtor is a realtor is a realtor. It doesn't really matter which one I list my property with. Huh, boy, do we know that's not true. However, many consumers believe that all we really do is list their home in MLS, fall to our knees, and pray that it sells. Now, prayer may be part of your marketing plan, but hopefully it's not the only part of your marketing plan. And yet we reinforce the idea that all we're going to do is list it by calling it a listing presentation. What if instead you're on the telephone calling to set up that appointment and you say to the seller, I'm calling to set up our marketing consultation appointment? Oh my goodness. Here's an agent who's talking about marketing. We really need to get with this person. It totally changes their perception of you. You're an agent who's not just proposing to list their property in MLS, end of conversation. You're actually setting up an appointment to talk marketing with them. Now, I have a friend, and I mentioned marketing consultation appointment to him, and he said, "Oh my goodness, Laurie," he said, "I think that's a tremendous improvement over listing presentation, but," he said, "what if you called it a marketing consultation conversation?" And I said, "Ooh, I like that." Because that goes on to imply that I'm going to be listening to you, Mr. and Ms. Seller, about your wants and needs. I'm going to be asking you about your real estate objectives with this transaction. We're actually going to have a conversation. It's not just going to be a listing presentation. So test it. Try it the next couple of times you have a presentation with a seller and see if calling it a marketing consultation appointment makes a difference. I think it will. Now, I promised you a minute ago that we'd give you some suggestions for qualifying your high end prospects. So let me say you start this process with what we call a magic question. And the magic question is as simple as this: how do you prefer to pay for the property you're considering buying at the $2 million level? How do you prefer to pay for the property you're considering purchasing at the $1 million price point? It's as simple as that. If someone is offended by that question, it's probably a red flag, because that's a soft way of starting a qualifying conversation. Now, basically, there are three answers, I think, that one might expect. The first one is, well, we'll be putting a certain amount of money down, probably about 30%. However, we will need to take out a mortgage loan. At which point you might say, terrific, so that I can show you all of the homes that you're going to want and need to see in order to make a smart decision, and so that you can negotiate from the maximum position of strength when you find a property you just absolutely fall in love with. What we'll need to do is get you with a mortgage lender this afternoon. Can I refer you to a mortgage lender, and can we get that appointment made this afternoon? Certainly no later than tomorrow. Can we make that work? Now, then continue that gentle nudge, nudge, nudge until they have agreed and you can quickly get them qualified by the lender. Now, the second answer that you might hear is, well, we'll be putting significant dollars down. We will require a mortgage loan. However, don't worry about it. We have our own money source. Perhaps they say that they're working with their private banker, or they have a lender that they've used in the past. Well, your answer is going to sound much the same. Terrific. So that I can show you all the homes you're going to want and need to see in order to make a smart decision, and so that you can negotiate from the maximum position of strength when you find that property you fall in love with and have to have. What we will need to do is get you with your mortgage lender immediately. Is it possible to get an appointment scheduled as early as this afternoon? Certainly, preferably no later than tomorrow. Now, they may turn to you and say, well, wait a minute, wait a minute. What do you mean, so that I can see all the properties I'm going to want and need to see? At which point, your response is something like this: well, I'm sure you will understand when I say many of our sellers will simply not allow their properties to be shown to someone who has not been fully qualified in advance. And so I want you to not miss anything that might be just the perfect property for you. So we need to get you qualified so you can see all those homes you're going to want and need to see. That's benefit oriented. And that gives the buyer, an incentive to move quickly so that they can be qualified and see all those things they're going to want and need to see. The third answer is one I'm sure you love to hear. And particularly when you're working with international buyers, it's a very, very common answer. And that is, oh, well, we'll be paying all cash. Well, you still need to qualify, don't you? You still need to be sure that this prospect does have cash available for the purchase because you don't want to waste your time looking for someone who's not qualified, nor do you want to put your sellers at risk by showing the property to someone who isn't qualified to purchase and, although we hope not, might have some negative intent in asking to see that property. So, how do you handle that? Ah, don't worry about it. We're going to pay all cash. Your script is probably going to go like this. Terrific. An all cash transaction is often a simpler and faster transaction. So, I'm going to want to show you all the properties you're going to want and need to see in order to make a smart decision, and so that you can negotiate from the maximum position of strength when you find that property you just fall in love with and have to have. So, what I will need from you is a letter of financial introduction from a financial institution where you have assets on deposit sufficient to purchase at the price point at which you're looking. Now, this is essentially a verification of assets, all right? And you may tweak this slightly when you're working with an international buyer. But basically, what you want is a confirmation that they have assets on deposit and available for withdrawal at a financial institution. And so they will request that their financial institution provide this to you as a simple letter on financial institution letterhead, and it verifies the fact that they have assets on deposit and available sufficient to purchase. Now, when you receive that, and generally those are scanned and emailed back to you, when you receive that, you need to do two additional things. The first thing you do is you go to a crisscross directory and you verify that the phone number at the bottom of that letterhead does in fact tie back to that particular financial institution. So, yes, this is a phone number for Royal Bank of Canada or Bank of Montreal or whatever it might be. All right. You check to make sure that number does in fact connect. Then you call that number and you ask for the person who signed that letter of financial introduction. Very, very important to do that. And when that person answers, you simply say, "Hello, this is Laurie Moore-Moore. I'm calling to confirm receipt of the letter of financial introduction, which you forwarded to me via email for John and Mary Smith." And hopefully they will say, "Very good. Thanks so much for confirming receipt." End of conversation. Now, we had a situation where one of our members called. In this case, it was in the US, and the member called Bank of America in Manhattan, in New York, to confirm receipt of a letter of financial introduction that had come to her on letterhead. Well, she called and asked for Susie Jones, who had signed the letter of financial introduction. The operator transferred her. She was on hold for a moment, and then a man answered. And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was holding for Susie Jones." And the male voice on the other end of the line said, "Oh, no, not another one." And the agent said, "I beg your pardon?" And the banker said, "Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the woman of the couple with whom I suspect you are working used to work in a clerical capacity here at the bank. She left under a cloud. She apparently stole letterhead. She and her boyfriend are going around the country creating their own letters of financial introduction. They have not one penny on deposit here at Bank of America, Manhattan. Well, is that a nice thing to know? Absolutely. So, for whatever reason, there are people out there that are doing that, and it's very, very important not to get caught up in whatever mischief they might have in their minds. And we've had multiple situations like this with our members. So, always good to qualify your prospect. And that gives you confidence. And frankly, it's part of the service that you deliver to your sellers. It's part of being a consummate professional. Well, we talked about terminology. Let's talk for a minute about some scripts. What do you say when your seller looks at you and says, well, wait a minute, your competitor will list it for a lower fee? Well, first of all, your ability to negotiate your professional fee is all about demonstrating the value that you bring to the transaction, isn't it? And I'm sure you have a variety of scripts that you use to demonstrate, to reinforce the value that you bring. Because would you agree that you could charge a higher professional fee than a competitor might charge? And we know the professional fee is always, always, always negotiable, but you could negotiate a higher professional fee than your competition and still have your seller end up with the highest possible bottom line because, frankly, your negotiating skills are so strong and you bring maximum value to the transaction by doing things like professional photography and professional staging, things that will make a difference in terms of the price that the seller will receive and put in their pocket. So, when you're thinking about scripts, one of the things you want to make sure is that you have a toolbox full of scripts to help you negotiate that professional fee. So, for example, the seller looks across at you and said, now, wait a minute. This is an expensive property. You will reduce your fee, won't you? You know, you probably already have a number of scripts. One that comes to mind is, well, let's defer the conversation about my professional fee until we've reviewed the marketing plan. Then, after you've reviewed the marketing plan, if the question comes up again, and it may not, it's a fairly simple matter to say to your seller, well, we've reviewed this marketing plan. What aspects of my marketing plan would you like me to eliminate? Because if we're talking about a different fee, we're talking about a different marketing plan. What would you like me to remove from the plan? Very often, that takes care of it, doesn't it? And there are any number of other ways that you can reinforce the value that you bring to the transaction. And sometimes that seller who can be a bit insistent will then say, well, your competitor will list it for a lower fee. Well, we have a member who says at that point he simply smiles and says, well, that competitor recognizes their value far better than I do and leaves it at that. But here's another way to deal with that. That's interesting because this didn't strike me as a discount property. And I'm not a discount agent looking to bring you a discount buyer who'll make a discounted offer. In many situations, nothing more needs to be said. Now, if that's a little dramatic for you, I understand that because you know what? There's not one right way to do most anything in this business. It's what works for you. It's what you're comfortable with and what you find is most effective for you and your style. But it's one of those scripts that it's kind of handy to have in your pocket. Well, let's shift and talk for a moment about out marketing the competition. I think you need to not only understand the clientele, the buyers and sellers in your marketplace, but I think you need to really understand your competition. And by that, I mean the brokerage companies as well as the individual agents, right, who are listing and selling in your marketplace. So let me just touch on something here about understanding your competition. Okay. First of all, I think you should take the time to do a competitive analysis. Now, in business, typically businesses do this as a matter of course. And I would propose to you that as an independent contractor, you're a small business owner. And so this is one of those business basics that you should implement. And so your competitive analysis, if you will, would probably be done like this. If you took the last 12 months in your marketplace and you actually did a spreadsheet, and here you would take again, I would say just the market area that you personally serve. You would break that into those narrow price bands that we talked about a moment ago, about $50,000 between 750 to just under 8, 8 to just under 850. And once you hit the $1 million category, probably break it by a quarter of $1 million. And then go back over the last 12 months and take each transaction that occurred in the area that you service and and record. Probably would do this in a simple Excel spreadsheet, or you could even do it with pen and paper. All right. Record the broker that listed the property, the broker that sold the property, the agent that listed it, the agent that sold it. And record that. And what you're recording is property address. Uh, and you might that might be zip code would be you could break it by zip code, or in a smaller market, go ahead and put full property address. All right, price, and of course broker, agent. Okay. Now, if you will do that over the last 12 months, here's what you're going to find. You're going to find by price band the brokers and agents that are doing the most business in your marketplace. Now, a lot of you'd probably say, ah, Laurie, I know who my competition is. I would propose to you, you're going to find some surprises. You're going to find that companies that you think are doing a lot of business aren't necessarily doing quite as much as you thought. And there are some under the radar companies and agents out there. But here's why it's important to do that. First of all, brokers. You want to know the brokers that are doing business because you have to be able to compete with them, don't you? So you have to make sure that the things that you are offering your potential buyers and sellers are competitive with the luxury programs that are being offered by those other brokers, which is one more reason to get on board with carriage trade, because then you're likely to have the comparable tools that you need and some things that will give you an edge in the marketplace. And with regard to the agents, oh my goodness, even more important to know, because yes, you need to know who they are because you're competing, but don't forget these are your cooperators too. These are the agents you want to target with your high end listings because they're the ones most likely to bring you the buyer at the right price point. And those are the agents you want to have great relationships with because you're going to be bringing them buyers for their listings. So they are, yes, your competitors, but oh my goodness, even more important, they are your cooperators. So you need to be networking with them and building positive relationships. But on the other hand, you need to know what it is they're offering so you can be competitive. Now, let me give you an example. All right. You all are sworn to secrecy, okay? Because I have been asked to tell you something that normally I would not share, okay? So here we go. How do you compete with other brokerage firms in your marketplace? All right. Well, I just told you you do a competitive analysis so you can identify what you as carriage trade do as compared to the other brokers in your market. And you can highlight those things in your marketing consultation conversations when you're working with sellers. Okay. Now, what about a specific example? Okay, This is what you're sworn to secrecy on. Everybody raise their right hands and repeat after me. I promise not to share this information. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Now, I can see each one of you. I don't know if you knew that, and I will find you if I hear buzz in the market. Okay, here we go. Let's use Sotheby's as an example. All right. Sotheby's is a powerful brand name because Sotheby's is associated with what? Sotheby's is associated with the well known Sotheby's Auction House, which has tons and tons of clients in the luxury space. However, the Sotheby's Real Estate Company is not part of the Sotheby's Auction Organization. Realogy, which is a large franchise organization in the US, has simply licensed the use of the Sotheby's name from the auction house for a franchise that they market across the US and internationally. Now, Sotheby's Auction House does have a marketing relationship with Sotheby's, the real estate organization, and they do help distribute marketing materials and so on, but it is not the same organization. So it's important that you, as a real estate professional, understand that you are dealing with a real estate franchise organization. That's with whom you're competing, and it is not a part of the Sotheby's auction organization that is so well known. Now, hopefully that gave you the incentive to go out and research information about other brands so that you can compete effectively in the marketplace with your competition. Okay? All right. I've said, how else do you outmarket the competition? Stand on the shoulders of your brand. You all have a powerful new book about the history of Royal LePage. If you're not sending that out in a pre-listing packet, I would suggest that might be a fabulous tool to begin to use, because when you sit down to do your presentation, remember that marketing consultation conversation, how wonderful is it to be able to talk about the history, the innovation of Royal LePage. You know, the first real estate professional to show up not dressed as a workman, but in a suit. You know, to totally change the vision of professionalism, to show properties on a bicycle. I mean, oh my goodness, these are things that will stick in people's minds that reinforce the fact that from the beginning, this is an innovative company. It's a Canadian company that you can trust, a Canadian company that you are going to want to work with because it's the company that gets the job done. So stand on the shoulders of your brand and learn how you can promote your brand in a way that is exciting and memorable and effective. Fill your toolbox. Uh, all the competencies, the skills, the tools that you can cram into your toolbox you need to have. And those are the tools that you can use to be more successful in the luxury arena. And one of those I mentioned, two of those actually I mentioned a moment ago. Professional photography. That is your ticket to play in the luxury market, as is staging. As is staging. Critically important. Understand your value proposition. Well, I just said understand your brand's value proposition, but also understand yours. What makes you unique and special? What is it that really reinforces the fact that you are the agent who can most effectively help them with their home finding or home sale needs? You need to be able to articulate that, and that needs to be the story you tell in your branding. And arm yourself with scripts. Make sure you anticipate the questions that you're going to be asked, the objections that you're going to hear, and make sure you have a script for every single one of those. And initially, those will probably be memorized and they may not feel totally comfortable to you. But you know what? When you started in this business, that was the case with everything, wasn't it? And yet, those things trip off your tongue now just as easily as can be, because frankly, that's just part of your dialogue. It's part of what you say. So arm yourself with scripts. scripts to meet all those questions and objections, and show up with enthusiasm. Be excited about working with the buyer. Be excited about the possibility of marketing that prospect. Enthusiasm is contagious, and you want them to be enthusiastic about you, don't you? Now, when I first started in this business, I went to my broker and I said, okay, what do I need to be successful in the luxury market? And my broker said, you know, Laurie, she said, there are 5 things that I want to share with you that I think are really important. And she said, really, the tasks aren't that much different. The process is the same. But here are the 5 things you need to keep in mind. First of all, from day one, you better look and act successful. And what she was saying there was you better project confidence and competence. And then she said you better be able to demonstrate that professionalism and competence immediately. So if you decide you're going to specialize in sports stars, for example, and the first time you meet a hockey player, you can't put together a complete sentence, well, it may not work. So don't be intimidated by celebrity, by money, by power and fame. Often these very, very successful individuals are a bit intimidating because they're so wealthy, they're so powerful, they're so well known, but you can't be intimidated, at least not so intimidated that you can't function. Do business with style. Absolutely, the best way to have style is to deliver quality service that is so over the top that your clients are out there saying, oh my gosh, do you know what my real estate professional did for me? That's memorable. That's having flair. That's having style. That's being absolutely what a luxury professional needs to be. But you can also do business with flair. Some of you have certain things that are associated with you that are part of the business image, your branding, if you will. So do business with style. Have a little flair and make sure part of that is quality service. Have quality tools and use them, use them, use them. We've covered that with carriage trade materials. And I added number 6 and 7 there, too important not to be mentioned. Always, always, always be ethical, and that's regardless of price point, obviously. And network, network, network with other upper tier agents. As I said, your competitors, but your cooperators as well. Well, what we're really saying here to sum it up is decide to be a luxury success. That's the very first step in building your luxury business, and make sure you have a plan for getting there. Number 2, be a true expert who knows the market down to the point of what's going on specific area that you serve so that you can offer outstanding service. You can offer outstanding advice because you've got your fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the marketplace. Decide to utilize the many benefits of the Royal LePage Carriage Trade Program. And I would invite you to consider taking the official luxury home marketing training and earning the Certified Luxury Home Marketing Specialist designation, both from the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing. Now, just as a final point, I thought I would show you the Certified Luxury Home Marketing Specialist uh, designation logo, which is top left there, and the seal, which is top right, which you can earn. The first step is completing our training. The second step is meeting performance standards. We don't have time to talk about that today, but I would invite you to our website. And then for those of you, and this is many of you because of your Canadian prices, top 10% in so many of your markets exceeds often substantially the $1 million level. For those who earn our designation and have documented $1 million and above performance, you would be certified luxury home marketing specialists with $1 million guild recognition. So important for you to know that these things are available to you to help brand yourselves in the marketplace. And we have 2 Royal LePage luxury home marketing training courses coming up. Toronto is scheduled just around the corner, May 4th and 5th. It has been sold out. We do have a waiting list, but we have well over 120 people registered. And so if you're looking to take the class fairly soon, an invitation to those of you who are in or would like to travel to Vancouver, July 16th and 17th. We'll be at the Metropolitan Hotel in downtown Vancouver, just apart across the street from the Pacific Center and mass transit. So easy to get to. And for those of you that are thinking about a vacation, it's a wonderful time to tack a 2 day training course onto a vacation and head to beautiful British Columbia. So I would invite you to find more information and registration on the website. So, with that said, if you enjoyed some of the ideas you heard today, I will tell you that the 2 day course is nonstop scripts and magic questions and ideas, and also the opportunity to do some wonderful networking within the Royal LePage system. So, with that said, John, I'm going to turn it back to you for a few questions before we say goodbye. And again, thanks so much for inviting me to join you for this webinar.
Well, thank you so much, Laurie. I think I speak on behalf of everyone participating today when I just say thank you so much. There's so much great information there, and I've just been here kind of furiously taking notes of all the things you shared. I'm actually stuck on that one statistic from the beginning: 320,000 millionaires in Canada.
And really, it's even better than that because if we think about traditional millionaires, the number's higher because high net worth individuals, it's a tougher definition to meet.
Right, right. Yeah, but so much great information. Also, but the price bands, just a totally different way of approaching the luxury market and the luxury clients. Just to reiterate what Lori was talking about with the certified luxury home marketing specialist, it really is the industry gold standard training. And it's why we're so happy that here at Royal LePage that we've partnered with the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing. You'll notice in the showcase on the right hand side, I've actually inserted links there so that you can connect directly to the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing's webpage. And also, if you're interested in that live training in Vancouver in July, there's a link there too that you can click there. It'll open it up in a new window and you can get yourself signed up. And of course, keep in mind that we do offer the training online as well. It's available in the RLP network. You'll go to the training tab, and then under the designation section is where you'll find out more about the CLHMS. I also want to talk a little bit more about the carriage trade program and some of the resources that are available. One of the big ones is being able to get exposure for your listings on carriagetradeproperties.ca. So it's a portion of the royallepage.ca website. And, with all the traffic that we're getting to the site, over 2 million unique visitors each month, you really want to make sure that your luxury listings are getting that added exposure on the carriage trade site. We've got a ton of other resources available to you. There's a market consultation presentation, signage, brochures, folders, stationaries, as well as templates in the marketing centers that you can create all kinds of marketing pieces to help promote these listings. And so, for those of you who want to learn more about the the carriage trade program and what it's all about, we're actually offering a webinar in a few weeks. It's Thursday, May 14th at 2 p.m. And we're going to talk to you about the tools that are available to carriage trade, get into how you can use them, and give you a bit more information about what the program's all about. Two of the common questions that we get are, as an agent, how do I qualify for carriage trade? And the way that it works, it's not on an agent by agent basis, it's on a listing by listing basis. So if you have a listing that is considered a luxury property or is in some way unique and distinguished, then that is how it can be promoted with the carriage trade program. One of the other common questions we have is like, oh, I'm really excited about carriage trade. How much does it cost? And there actually is no cost at all. All the resources of the carriage trade program are offered at no cost to you. And there's so much in there for you to take advantage of. In terms of some of our upcoming webinars, I wanted to invite you to our next sales success webinars when Chris Leader is going to be back. That's May 19th. And the topic for that section is going to be negotiating the offer. If you've missed any of our previous webinars with Chris Leader, feel free to check out royallepage.ca/training. And under the sales success section, you can access the recordings of all of those previous webinars. I also want to let you know that our team of trainers is currently traveling across Canada with our newest workshop, Maximize Your Earning Potential. We're coming to the end of our training season, but we still do have workshops coming up throughout Ontario. There's some in Quebec and Alberta this week. We'll be in Atlantic, Canada in May and June, and as well as Saskatchewan from the kind of the end of May and early June. And again, for all details, royallepage.ca/training, so you can see when we're coming to your area and to get registered. And these realtor marketing workshops are offered at no cost. It's half day training, typically about 2 to 3 hours, to bring you up to speed on trends in the industry, as well as get you hands on experience with Royal LePage and other online tools. And just a reminder of some of the other webinars that we offer on a regular basis. Every month, we have a welcome webinar and getting started with the marketing webinar for new agents. But we also have monthly webinars that are always new content, such as the Building Your Tech Toolkit, which is focusing a lot on Google Apps. The next session for that series will be May 6th, when we'll talk all about Google Forms, and then the Sales Success series. So at this point, I'll see if we've got any questions so far. But if not, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to participate in today's session. If you'd like to leave us some feedback about how you enjoyed today's session or what topics you'd like to see in the future, feel free to send us an email or to visit our site. So at this point, I'm not seeing any questions. Might just wait a moment or two to see if anybody's got any last comments. Did you have any last words, Laurie? Or
No, not really. I guess my only comment would be thank you again for the opportunity to be part of your webinar series. And hopefully, everyone listening gleaned maybe one little idea that they can take back and use to build their business in the luxury market.
perfect. Well, thank you so much, Laurie. It's been a pleasure having you here. There's no questions yet, so I think we'll call it a day. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing your expertise with us today.
Well, it was my pleasure again. Enjoyed it and look forward to the opportunity to hopefully meet a lot of you who are listening face to face.
Perfect. Well, thank you to everyone who participated today. Of course, if you've got any questions, you can always email us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Sales Success webinar.